just women are in danger, but all marginalized people, where being uniquely different right now might truly be considered a crime. It seems as though we had all slipped into a false sense of comfort, that justice would prevail and that good would win in the end. Well, good did not win this election, but good will win in the end. So what today means is that we are far from the end. Today marks the beginning of our story. The revolution starts here. The fight for the right to be free, to be who we are, to be equal. Let's march together through this darkness, and with each step, know that we are not afraid. That we are not alone. That we will not back down. That there is power in our unity, and that no opposing force stands a chance in the face of true solidarity. And to our detractors that insist that this march will never add up to anything,
Boston Red here with Friday Java, a weekly magazine of political theory, polling, and commentary. It is part of the history called people that make up this fascinating journey. We are part of the Obama network. For that, we make no apologies. What we pledge to do is give you the facts on a bridge to history. What body politics is, the most up-to-date theories of political science and psephology. Stay tuned for this incredible ride. Boston Red, peace out.
On May 4th, 2018. This is Friday Java, our magazine program, where we look around the body politic of America and the world to a certain extent. This weekend we have our financial program, Numbers Man, where we delve in macroeconomics. Plenty of that going on these days with the price of commodities, some going up, some going down, depending on where we are. Let me just make some sound adjustments here. All right. Now, there we go. Anyway, nonetheless, we have that on. We'll have also an open source report this weekend. And on Saturday morning, the week that was, Monday morning, the Monday Morning Quarterback, where we look at the talk shows and other matters. On, Saturday, we have Uncle Carl Rove, the political consultant par excellence. Today we'll have the people from the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. The crystal ball, Dr. Larry Sabato, was at one time the chair of the American Political Science Association. And Charlottesville has the dubious distinction of being the city that Heather Heyer was killed in. We always remember her on Fridays. And one of the white supremacists involved there is just this week convicted of attacking one of the civil rights demonstrators there, and he is yet to be sentenced for that. But firstly, let's go to Arizona. We've been covering this teacher strike. It's finally been resolved, and we'll get the some audio from them. And let's see, we make some little adjustments here. Just a minute. Is over.
Real win for our teachers, for our kids, for our educators in the classroom, and we're grateful for your help in getting this over the finish line. We're excited that it's a bipartisan bill, and it's time to do this. So it's a good way to start the day.
That was Governor Ducey.
There we go, everyone.
The governor of
just moments ago,
Arizona.
Governor Doug Ducey signed the budget bill, as you heard, calling it a win for teachers and for the state of Arizona.
This comes after a long night at the Capitol, which followed a lot of long days at the Capitol for teachers and our legislators. And that's where we find Team 12's Jen Wall at the Capitol following this breaking news story. Jen, what's the reaction like out there?
Yeah, you got it. Good morning to you both. So some of these teachers have been out here since about 6 o'clock yesterday morning, and teachers are still showing up even though the official budget bill has been signed by the governor. We just asked the AEA why teachers are showing up. They say they're expected to be out here for about 4 to 5 hours. Many disappointed, some hopeful for what could be ahead in November, and they still want to voice their opinion. Now, we also asked the all-important question to Joe Thomas, the president of the Arizona Education Association. When is this walkout expected to end? When could teachers go back to the classroom? He wasn't able to officially confirm. We actually asked him just minutes after the governor signed the bill, and he says he is still waiting to make sure everything is in order, and we should have an announcement soon. Teachers I spoke with this morning, mostly disappointed, some mixed, some hopeful about what could be ahead. Here is what is in the governor's plan: $644.1 million for a 20% increase in teacher pay by school year 2020. These raises, the governor says, will be ongoing, protected in the base of the budget and inflation. Then $371 million to fully restore recession-era cuts to additional district charter assistant phased in over 5 years. We also spoke with two senators on both sides of the issue. One voted for, the other against. Take a listen to what they had to say.
It's sad that this is the way that we have to go. I love the initiative process, but I wish we didn't have to rely on it. I wish we had a legislature that was mature and forward-thinking enough to invest in our education.
I needed to vote yes on this one. It's $405 million in fiscal 19 alone in new money over and above inflation enrollment growth that can be used to start to patch the damage done by the cuts over the last 10 years.
So lawmakers telling us this morning teachers could expect to see about $405 million pumped into Arizona classrooms over the next year. But again, those teachers are still concerned that there is not a sustainable revenue for this budget plan, even though the governor says there is. Plus, this money will be allegedly left up to the districts to distribute to teachers. So educators are wondering, will some get raises? Will some not? And then if the districts need the money, will the money actually go to where it needs to in the classrooms? Again, will it be spent fairly? Their concern, they've been saying all along, is for the students. And again, I know a lot of parents are asking on Facebook, on Twitter. They're calling into our station. If you're just joining us right now, we're not exactly sure when the official walkout will be over, but it could be very soon, as the governor did sign the bill. And we will continue to bring you the latest on all editions of 12 News. Emma and Paul.
Yeah.
This is Channel 12 out of Phoenix, Arizona. This is Red for Ed, the leaders there. They're also working on a proposal, a ballot proposal for November, an initiative petition that the leader there talked about. A 6-day walkout there, and it is moving on. Supposedly they would be going back to school. When we started this movement, this is from Lynn Ekinson Garcia, the president of the National Education Association, and the Arizona Education Association, Joe Thomas. Anyway, when we started this movement, Arizona educators pledged to keep the fight for the schools and their students deserve until the end, and we were true to our words. We will return to our schools, classrooms, and students, knowing that we have what we have accomplished and the movement we have created. We recognize that we weren't alone in this fight, that there were far too many supporters to single out. Nonetheless, the governor's plan called 20 by 2020 to improve K through 12 education. It is a part of a $10.4 billion budget plan. That's for the entire state of Arizona. Now, as they said, the problem is this money goes into school districts. The school districts will decide what is going on. A lot of what the teachers were asking for, according to Thomas, is just not in this budget. He said teachers who came to the Capitol to voice their needs and plans for the classroom were ignored. Thomas said the Red for Education movement is here to stay, and we are not done bringing in resources. Reduction in Arizona education spending has taken the largest chunk out of funds for the schools over a decade. Teachers were fighting more for just pay raises, as in many of these states we've been covering in the state of West Virginia, Kentucky, and the long fight in Oklahoma. The Arizona Education Association initiative lists 5 demands for lawmakers at the beginning of Red for Ed movement, including a 20% salary hike for all teachers, bringing back funding levels for education to what it was in 2010. So some of the things going on here as we move through this particular...
For our teachers, for our kids, for our educators in the classroom, and we're...
Let me get rid of him here. Rebecca Wilson, Mastre de Pedro Com 25 alumnos de cuantos grandios su celum especuala signaturas des si juzga más el respecto para eso un mentor fedos para la este de Arizona. Anyway, some of the messages sent out here, that was from Senator Juan Mendoza, vote in contra de proyecto de ley. Anyway, this is some of what's going on. You understand from this, it is a bilingual state, and supposedly the schools were to open on Thursday the 3rd, and some schools were closed on a Thursday also. So this, so assuming most of the schools will be back on schedule today, which is Friday, at best we can get it's going on here from Arizona. Yeah. Anyway, to the crystal ball, we'll shift a little bit here around. We'll do the crystal ball. This is the Ohio primary, the heart of it all. This is the Buckeye State by Carl Klondike. He's the managing editor of the crystal ball. The Buckeye State's bellwether status may be fading, but while May and November to come reflect some of the major national trends. They're having a primary in the Buckeye State, Ohio, on the 15th of May. If you recall, the former head of the Consumer Protection Agency and former Attorney General Richard Cordray, is running against Mike DeWine. If you remember him, he's been around for a very long time. That is for the gubernatorial seat now held by Governor Kasich, who is not running for a re-election. But nonetheless, this is headline Columbus, Ohio. For the first time in more than a half a century, the state's popular vote outcome was not closer to the national result in a presidential election. D.J. Trump won the state in 2016 by 8 points, while losing nationally by 2 points and giving the Buckeye State a significant Republican lean after decades of exhibiting only a slight lean. Assuming Trump is on the ballot in 2020, he would likely start as a favorite to retain Ohio. A lot of things will depend, obviously, on if DJ Trump is there, if DJ Trump is not there. There is one senator there. Senator Brown is seeking re-election. He is from the Appalachian part of Ohio. Unexpected primary battles lead to a predictable rematch. They see Mike DeWine has been a clear front runner as in the GOP side, but there are other people also there. Mary Taylor and Jim Rossetti. Rossetti, yeah. Anyway, the Attorney General faced criticism in the past from conservative activists as DeWine, but DeWine had been a senator. He'd been various things along his political career. He is 71 years old, and he has a younger running mate. In fact, he got one of the candidates out to be his running mate in this contest. They run it that way in Ohio. But then there was another curveball early this year. Renacci, I think that's how you pronounce his name, Renacci, replaced the state treasurer. Now, this was Josh Mandel as the party's likely senatorial nominee after the latter dropped out citing problems with his health. Nonetheless, Taylor has since doubled down on support for DJ Trump and trying to get DeWine to the right by attacking him as a career politician. Well, he has been a career politician. He's been in the Senate. He's been the governor and various other things. DeWine is at 54, is up 54%. Taylor has 14% in January, and only 43.26 in early April. So it had improved as Taylor has improved some. Taylor has consolidated the anti-DeWine vote behind one candidate. So that is something that's shaping up. In other words, this Taylor is running to the right of DeWine, which makes it a very interesting primary battle. On the Democratic side, the anointed one is Richard Cordray, no doubt about that. He's running against our own Dennis Kucinich, the long-serving Congress type from Ohio, and also the mayor of Cleveland. Democratic primary unfolds in two stages, the pre-Cordray and post-Cordray. Throughout much of the 2017, there were four credible contenders for Democratic nomination, and they are still there. Joe Scavani and Nan Whitley, a former U.S. representative. Oh, Betty Sutton. Anyway, who else have we got here? Former State Representative Connie Finch, a fifth Democrat, joined in the fray later in the year, and now former Supreme Court Justice named Bill O'Neill. National total off-color posting questioning the Me Too movement. Well, anyway, whatever. Cordray early forced Whitley, and Pinch out of the race, and Sutton joined his ticket that left O'Neill and Scavani. Anyway, that's kind of how they lined up there. Won't spin with a lot of these details here, but Dennis Kucinich, incidentally, was endorsed by the Cleveland plane dealer. Now, there was a little situation here. Kucinich, some of his momentum was supposedly blunted and may have head in the race. Kucinich returned. It was a $20,000 speaking fee to an organization he gave to a group that is apparently sympathetic to the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and Dennis Kucinich. Dennis Kucinich worked as a media type on Fox News, defended the Syrian government, which was a good position. And it goes on to say, in a sense, Kucinich and Kadre are emblematic of their respective home cities. Cleveland, like Kucinich, is brass, combative, and in your face. Columbus, evidently that's where Kadre is out of, is managerial and consensus oriented. Very interesting. Not sure where DeWine is from, but total Democratic primary vote will be cast by 20 counties, including a northeast region of Ohio, as defined by the Ohio Politics Almanac. Didn't want to drag that out too far. Northeast Ohio cast about 45% of the total Democratic presidential primary vote. And this goes on to talk about some of the people here and how they Scavani and O'Neill are also from Northeast Ohio. O'Neill is eastern Cleveland suburbs. Scavani is from Youngstown area. The three candidates have different ethnic groups. Scavani, of course, he is Italian, and O'Neill is Irish, and of course Kucinich is Croatian. So in other words, they're sort of dividing up that vote there, which doesn't help Dennis Kucinich as much. There's another, as they say, courthouse scheme. There are places that might prefer Kucinich over Kadre, but there's a multi-candidate field. Scavani might end up pulling more from Kucinich, and Kadre must do very well. That's Franklin County. That is Columbus, where he is from. If the race does come down to DeWine and Kadre, it would be a rematch there, and it's showing up here. This was 2010. This is 8 years ago. DeWine ran against Kadre, and it was a squeaker. 47.5 DeWine got, and Kadre got 46.3. A little over 1% votes between them. And of course they give the DJ Trump vote here. DJ Trump was ahead all after the convention in Ohio. He ended up with 51.3% of the vote, and Hillary Clinton had 43.2% of the vote. So it was like about 8 points difference there in those. I think G.W. Bush won Ohio, by 4 or 5 points, something like that. Don't have it up here right now. But Clinton and Kadre in 2010 also lost Montgomery County. That's the city of Dayton, Ohio. Montgomery County voters at least a little bit lean to the left of the state as a whole, and it's essential for Democrats to do well down in Dayton. That's organized in Dayton many, many years ago. And, of course, in Cleveland. But anyway, different situation there. But with Ohio changing, this is Brown. This is Sherrod Brown. Brown will have to significantly improve on Clinton's performance in eastern Ohio. The stakes for Ohio Democrats are high in the Senate race. Democrats could be excused for losing to DeWine, who is a state institution, no doubt about that. But it's very, very hard in states like Ohio, where the Democratic Party more or less has collapsed. and it was never a very big. There was Taft there, and of course before him, there was Robert Taft and the other Taft. So Ohio's been a Republican bastion for a long time, particularly in governor's races. But remember that they had some senators. John Glenn, for instance, late John Glenn, was a Democrat out of Ohio, one of those. And we had several others out of Ohio. Senator Metzenbaum, I remember him, out of Ohio also. But we also had in the Congress Bonehead Boehner, who was forced out by even people more reactionary than him. So anyway, nonetheless, these bloody primaries are coming up. The change in Ohio, let's see what else we have here. Another GOP primary wrinkle comes in the state treasurer's race. Hadn't heard anything about this. The perennial candidate Sandra O'Brien might beat the favorite of most Republicans, Robert Springer. Those who have never heard of O'Brien, who Corley easily defeated in his first statewide victory in 2006 for the state treasurer. So he's been around, and nonetheless, she is the Sharon Wrong-Angle version there in Ohio. Interesting type there. So there's a lot of things coming out here. There's some other Republicans here. Some character named Linehan might kick off the seat of nominated. Oh, I see. Anyway, very strange operator here. Let's see. And what else do we have here? Other strong Democratic target is Cincinnati there. Stephen Chabot faces what should be a spirited challenge from Hamilton County clerk of court, who's a candidate Democrats discussed with delight. Much of Cincinnati were highly educated. Procter & Gamble is there. And Trump won it by a half dozen points. Cobalt, who only raised about 171,000 last quarter, may not realize the predicament he's in. The Democratic candidate 660,000 there. And in another race here, Kristen Hagan and the former Ohio State and NFL star Anthony Gomez. With Hagan running to Gomez's right, as well as against Bob Gibbs. I don't know who the hell he is, but anyway. Some of what is in Nina Turner's Ohio. Nina Turner, of course, being the chair of Our Revolution with Bernie Sanders. Anyway, for Ohio, to sum this up, the progressive candidate, of course, is Dennis Kucinich. And let's go to a little bit of the Dennis Kucinich part of the cast here. We'll find him. Here we go. Dennis Kucinich says, of course, he returned the honorarium. It was an honorarium there. The former U.S. representative, Democrat running, said he's returning the $20,000 fee received from a group sympathetic to the Syrian government. He initially failed to disclose in the state ethics filing that he had received the honorarium, has strongly defended the Syrian Solidarity Movement, calling it a civil rights advocacy group. Now, he called the initial news report geared from the public filing a smear attack by the primary election opponent cadre. No doubt it was. As we announced earlier, the plain dealer had endorsed Mr. Kucinich. And that was pretty much the end of that. Now, a little bit of what the plain dealer had to say. Dennis Kucinich, for the Democrats this year, a race for Ohio governor. The choice has come down to passion, vision, and ability to grasp the bully's pulpit to inspire Ohioans about the need for change. Only one candidate fills those criteria: Dennis Kucinich, the former mayor of Cleveland and a 9-term congressman. In other words, he was in Congress 18 years. Ohio's next governor must be a fighter for greater equality, justice, and common sense, a fighter for the state's urban centers, and a fighter for the morbid thinking on education, diversity, economic opportunity, and homeroom rights that held Ohio back for too long. The editorial board of the of Cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer is aware, as any could be, of Dennis Kucinich's flaws. For 24 of the last 28 years, Ohio has had Republican governors, and this is one of the things to point out here. The Senate has been Republican since 1985. The House, apart from 2 years since 1995, old habits die hard. Kucinich, 71, needs aides who will say no, and he must never again make nice with Bashar al-Assad. Well, I don't think he made nice with Bashar al-Assad. A Democratic governor would face a Republican-run Senate and probably a Republican-run House. So they have a megaphone. Dennis Kucinich, no doubt, would have a megaphone there. Cadre is too low key. The front runners beside Dennis Kucinich are former Attorney General Richard Cadre. He's from suburban Columbus, and the former Supreme Court. We talked about him. O'Neill. Wherever he's from, who knows. And Joe Schiavone of Youngstown, also running Exotic Dancer? Larry Early of Dayton, and a political newcomer by the name of Paul Ray of Alliance. Neither have responded to the editorial board. Cadre is 58 years old. Of course, he was at the Federal Consumer Protection Agency, and he still should be there. And O'Neill is 70 years old. I didn't know that he was 70 years old. A proven state vote getter. Wants to create a state mental health hospital network, legalize marijuana, and close for-profit prisons. Well, at least he is progressive here. And this guy, Schiavone, anyway, 38, Senate, the Ohio Senate Minority Leader from 2014 to last year, says his experience in representing Mahoning Valley gives him a deep understanding of the economic ills, etc. there. And so many in the traditional Democratic areas of Ohio to support DJ Trump. Well, he's right about that. Democrats would vote for their future by nominating Dennis John Kucinich. I didn't know his middle name was John. In the early voting, that starts on May the 8th there. So nonetheless, the candidates and who they were in the editorial policy. We'll take a quick look at the Plain Dealer just to see if there are any the big deal here is Kevin Love and LeBron shred Raptors in game 2. LeBron James himself scored 43 points. Kevin Love added 31 points. We get a little of what's going on there. DJ Trump to appear Saturday at Cleveland's Public Hall. Didn't know about that. That's one of the reasons we check sometimes while we're doing this. I'm not sure what. Trip to Cleveland will take place at the Public Hall. Is expected to arrive in Cleveland Saturday morning, landing at nearby Burke Lakefront Airport, then heading to Public Hall. Ostensibly will be in Cleveland to discuss the Republicans' tax reform legislation. He also is expected to appear at a nearby fundraiser affiliated with the National Republican Committee. The Ohio Attorney General DeWine, the front runner in Tuesday's primary for governor, will not be there. That's very interesting. DeWine evidently found someplace else to go. The campaign spokesman said DeWine's unable to attend due to family scheduling conflicts for his son's graduation from Ohio State University, a business school. That's Mr. DeWine. DeWine's running mate will be there. That's John Husted. And Mary Taylor, who is also running for governor, has yet to announce if she'll attend or not. Everybody's running away. The public hall opened in 1922 and has a share of prominent politicians over the year. Hillary Clinton was there. Then the Democratic nominee visited 2 days before the election. Didn't do her any good either. Anyway, let me just mop up something here. Out to Ohio, Republicans hope to change Ohio's fetal heartbeat bill. Will overturn Roe versus Wade. In other words, Iowa Republicans took a step towards passing the strictest abortion ban in the nation. This is incidentally from the Des Moines Register, which is now part of USA Today. Oh boy. Republicans debated the legislation late into the night and said they hope that their law will face a legal challenge so it can advance to the U.S. Supreme Court. And Roe versus Wade in 1973, the court has declined to hear similar cases in recent years. But as states continue to pass legislation restricting abortion, and DJ Trump appoints some more conservative judges that could in fact happen. The legislature would ban most abortions after the fetus heartbeat is detected as about 6 weeks. Anyway, conservatives argue for passage of a new law now that by the time it reaches the Supreme Court, which takes 3 to 4 years, Trump could have potentially appointed 1 or 2 other justices. No doubt about that. That could actually happen. And this is one of the downsides to DJ Trump, the appointment of these right-wing Supreme Court justices. Will it matter? No doubt about it. Clarence Thomas has been able to hold on, but worse than Clarence Thomas is this Chief Justice that they have there now at the Supreme Court, Roberts. No doubt. But a bunch of Republicans, and part of the problem has happened, these Republicans are holdovers from a different day. Clarence Thomas, like DJ Trump, is back in the 50s, although in the 50s, Clarence Thomas could have literally got into the Supreme Court. Period. That is difference, but that's what happens many times. The 8th Circuit Court of Appeals struck down the North Dakota rule in the 8th Circuit out of Chicago. Had a lot of dealings with those in that circ in the past. Anyway, the appeals sets one step below the Supreme Court appeals courts. Well, actually, the D.C. appeals court's more noted a step there. But anyway, states are passing restrictive abortion restrictions and courts are knocking them down. Well, these are different courts. Now, some of what the knocking down is going on is by justices appointed even by G.W. Bush. Iowa recently had a law on the books. It had banned most abortions after 20 weeks. It was one of 18 states with such laws. That is according to the Gut Measure Institute, a research group that supports abortion rights. The law in Arizona and Idaho have restricted abortion after 20 weeks have been struck down by federal courts. Mississippi passed one, and this just goes on here, that would ban abortions after 15 weeks. Kentucky passed one last month banning certain abortion procedures after 11 weeks. Both laws are currently up for challenges. So what about the Iowa Supreme Court? The proponents of the heartbeat bill are worried about their chances in federal court. They could bring a lawsuit in state court. Planned Parenthood took this path in 2 other cases, challenging abortion restrictions in Iowa. In 2015, the Iowa Supreme Court upheld some of the medical abortions after the state board banned the practice. In February, the Iowa Supreme Court heard oral arguments in a case challenging the 72-hour waiting period before women could obtain an abortion. The court will issue a decision in the coming weeks. So this is what happens many times. The religious right has been running very, very strong in Iowa, and this is a product of their work. This is in the register here. Let me see. And I guess we'll do this one and disappear. Planned Parenthood blocked from sex education grants under the Iowa budget. Are taking aim once again at Planned Parenthood. The move follows the passage earlier this week of the abortion thing. Planned Parenthood officials said the bill actually would work against Republicans in the lawmakers, desire to reduce abortions. Any reasonable person who wants to see fewer abortions should work with Planned Parenthood to promote sex education and family planning. The Planned Parenthood of the Heartland Public Affairs Director, that is Davison Ripley, said in a statement. So anyway, this is part of what is going on there. Pat Grassley, I don't know if it's a Republican from chair of the House Appropriations Committee, it says in Iowa the budget likely will leave a cushion of about $150 million in unspent funds. He suggested that actual cost increase for Medicaid during the upcoming fiscal year could exceed $100 million. I guarantee you that the managed care organizations are hungry and thirsty for more state resources. Well, that's one of the problems with managed care organizations to begin with. If in fact you go to single payer plan, you would eliminate managed care as we now know it, because you would eliminate these private insurance companies from charging exorbitant rates to manage things that you would not need to manage. So that's one of the big plugs for managed care. Let's move on here, and we'll do the sports. Running a little later. Trying to get our broadcast down, not run too far out of things here. Yeah, let's see. We have to. Anyway, Mr. Ichiro Suzuki, a player with 18 years with the Seattle Mariners, was his last game on Thursday. He now moves in to the management there. He's 44 years old. I read this. A major league career is over. He hit 2.55 in 47 plate appearances with the Mariners, and other than a nice season as a bench player for the Mariners. That's in 2016, when he also collected his 3,000th career hit. His offensive production has been a subpar for a long time. Oh well, anyway. So he has, So he's used more or less as a pinch hitter. He played in Japan. He didn't arrive in the American system till he was 27 years old. There is no doubt if he had spent his entire season in the majors, he would have had more hits than Pete Rose. He was one of the best all-around players in the majors, carrying on the legacy Rod Carew, excuse me, and the late Tony Gwynn, with his unique ability to place the ball wherever he desired. Mr. Ichiro. So anyway, he'll be on the bench taking batting practice. Of course, when the games actually start, he will not be there. On to Major League, National Basketball Association. There were two games out there. The Cavaliers were at the Raptors in Toronto. Cavaliers won 28-110. And the 76ers were in Boston. Celtics 108-103. And both teams lead the series 2-0. Watch out. Let's do the Hockey League very quickly here. And we had those. Oh. We hope. Here we go. Eventually we get there. The Capitals were at in Pittsburgh playing our Penguins. 3-1 was the final score of that Penguins. And the Predators and the Winnipeg Jets in Winnipeg. Predators 3-2, and that should have the series tied up 2-2 and 2-2. All right, Major League Baseball. The Pirates were in Washington playing the Nationals. Score was 3-1. Nationals over the Padres. Atlanta was in New York and shut out the Mets. It was ugly. 11-0. The line score there. 15 hits for Atlanta and 3 hits for the Mets. Oh boy. In 11, Toronto was in Cleveland. Blue Jays 13-11. High hitting game there. Toronto had 17 hits, 1 error, and Cleveland 15 hits and 1 error. The Yankees were in Houston. Yankees won that game 6-5. Mr. Chapman got the save. The Tigers were in Kansas City. Kansas City 10-6 in that contest. The Dodgers were in Arizona. Dodgers pull out one finally. 5-2. Mr. Kenley Jansen was got the save. The Red Sox were in Texas. The Rangers 11-5. The Twins were on the south side of Chicago. White Sox 6-5. The Blue Jays were in Cleveland. I guess a second game. Cleveland 13-4 over Toronto. The Orioles were in California. Angels 12-3. The Orioles are back to their losing ways. And finally, the Athletics and Mariners, with Mr. Ichiro's last night, 7-6. Seattle over Oakland. And this does it for sports, and it will do it for us. Have a good weekend, everyone. We'll be back on WBRN Radio and the Boston Red Network with the week that was. And also this week in economics, that is the Numbers Man Report. That's our macroeconomics report. We do that weekly also. And we've been working on a number of productions here. We're going to feature Dennis Kucinich. We'll feature him. He's a progressive candidate. And I think we've done one on Dennis Kucinich, if I recall. And we've done several over the years, but one in this season. And also been working on something on the infamous Kwame West of the circus known as the Kardashians. I remember old Bob Kardashian, the late Bob Kardashian. He was an associate of O.J. Simpson, but double-crossed him. But anyway, it's rumored that one of those Kardashian women, it was O.J.'s daughter. We don't know about all that. But anyway, there's a circus there, 400 years of slavery, boy. And now there's also evidently a planned summit at the White House. Not certain who it's sponsored by. We'll bring it to you when we find out about it. I think there are two groups out there, and they're bringing, this is on African Americans. I believe it's African American males, or maybe just African. Anyway, they're going to bring athletes there, and definitely Colin Kaepernick will not be invited, and also entertainers. They'd probably go back and get some Step and Fetch It clones, but Step and Fetch It was not an Uncle Tom. But anyway, there were a bunch of those out there too. They'll all be there.